Chapter 3. "And that's our ride," Matt said as a white BMW pulled up to the curb at the airport exit just outside Prague. Amanda was impressed with the luxury they'd been enjoying so far. The private jet they had just taken had a full leather interior and large-screen televisions, and James flew the plane beautifully. She was disappointed to learn that he had some business to attend to before the induction. At the airport, he said his goodbyes while the chauffeur emerged from the driver's side door. The chauffeur was impressive too, a real bodybuilder. Amanda eyed his toned form discreetly as he loaded their bags into the trunk. Despite the July heat, he wore a wool navy blue suit. Amanda was thoroughly enjoying this continued VIP treatment, though she took care not to show it. They had traveled about 10 hours to get to the Czech capital. She and Lydia had slept sporadically en route, too emotionally on edge to rest properly. Amanda kept remembering the dark shape that had tried to attack them. She had so many questions, but Matt was fast asleep almost as soon as they took off, his seat fully reclined. When they climbed into the car, she and Lydia made a coordinated effort to sandwich Matt between them so they could interrogate him on the way to their hotel. Amanda went first. "So who's on this committee we're going to meet? And what kind of protection were you talking about?" Lydia piped up. "And what exactly was that thing that attacked us? You said it was evil energy? Like what? You barely said 2 words to us on the flight. And where are we going?" She got more and more upset as she spoke, nearly hyperventilating. Matt twirled his mustache with a childish air of self-importance. "Patience, my dear ladies, as Mr. Joya, a.k.a. the big boss, would say." He winked at Lydia. "I will leave all the explanations to him. We'll be at the hotel soon. You'll meet Basil, and he'll take us to the induction." Lydia sighed. "Look, Matt, you're being very strange. We have time to kill, and you can answer a couple of questions, can't you? How old are you?" Matt shrugged. "I'm 22. Anyway, I can try. I get sidetracked when I'm nervous and happy." So Matt was at least aware of his eccentricities. That was reassuring. Amanda brought up her next question. "So is there anything unique about people who become Sentinels? Some common trait we share? Were we chosen somehow? I mean, don't you think it's weird that both Lydia and I are Sentinels? The best I can figure is that we all happen to be smart. My hypothesis is that it has to do with high processing speed, how fast you're able to think, how fast your neurons are able to fire off those chemical messengers, and... Anyway, that's my theory, but nobody really knows. Somehow we absorb the solar flare, and it triggers an ability to generate psychic energy, which we can then expel and hit all sorts of targets." Amanda opened her mouth to ask another question, but Matt had only taken the briefest pause. "Actually, I use the word psychic loosely. We don't predict the future or read people's minds, though some of us can do a bit of mind control. I just mean that we have extrasensory abilities, stuff we can do outside of the 5 senses. Wait. Actually, nope. That's not really accurate either. It's not about sensing, but more about generating. Pulse energy. I don't know how to classify that. In the past, there used to be talk of ectoplasm. Maybe that's what we produce. Am I losing you?" Amanda dragged a hand through her hair and rubbed the back of her skull. In part, the travel fatigue was catching up with her, but Matt's overly effusive technique for delivering information was overwhelming her too. "Let's talk about that later. Just tell us more about this committee." "Yes, the committee. They're not Sentinels, they're managers, and they give us assignments. They pay us, and they get paid by the people who request our help. We're like the mafia." At that, his mustache puffed out proudly, and it was obvious that he found this particular comparison exciting. She glanced at Lydia, who was cleaning her sunglasses. Matt rambled on. "Some people, like other secret societies, need to have their psychic messes cleaned up. Plasmids are formed when someone uses magic. They don't dissolve on their own. So these people pay the committee, and the committee assigns us the job. We get paid for each assignment." Amanda was about to ask what a typical assignment might pay, but Matt, being Matt, kept talking. If anyone tries to hurt you in any way, the committee will rip them a new one. But don't worry, everyone operating in the paranormal field knows this, and no one messes with us. The committee has political connections, paid informants, and a network of assassins at their disposal. That's the protection I was talking about." "Assassins?" Lydia jumped in her seat, abruptly turning sideways to stare him in the face. "I don't like the sound of that." Amanda was also surprised, but at the same time relieved. She didn't mind protection. Why would anyone mind protection? Growing up unwanted by two self-absorbed parents, and then orphaned, she had often wished for some sort of a badass brother to watch her back. This was even better. Suddenly, she was really looking forward to becoming a part of a group that gave a damn about her. And possibly finding the man of my dreams, she thought. But then she quickly pushed the image of James and his unassuming charm from her head. Matt chuckled. "Don't worry about assassins, Lydia, really. Think of it as a last resort. Come on, I don't mean to scare you. There were a ton of assassinations in the Middle Ages, but it rarely happens anymore. Because now, our reputation alone is enough to prevent attacks. We are totally the good guys. I promise." "Why would somebody want to hurt us anyway?" asked Amanda. "Because you have very useful abilities. Can you imagine what would happen if someone kidnapped your loved ones? Wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get them back? You see where I'm going with this? The committee ensures you're untouchable." Amanda could see his point. "I think I stopped listening when you said kidnapped," Lydia said. "This is scary, Matt. I don't think I like this at all." The car drew up in front of their hotel, an older 5-story building on a quiet avenue. They parked by the main entrance, across the street from an outdoor cafe and a shiny Art Nouveau sculpture fashioned out of moving pieces of metal. Matt spoke again, his face dead serious. It struck Amanda as a little weird, as if someone had flipped a switch in Matt's mind. "Lydia, listen, you have these powers. Whether you're alone with them or part of our group, you can't get rid of them. So choose the group. Nobody messes with us, okay? Nobody. Ever." He leaned over her to throw open the door. "Scooch over, babe, let's go," he urged, suddenly regaining his previous carefree manner. Lydia gave him an icy death stare. "Don't call me babe." Amanda promptly exited from her side. Leaving the bickering pair in the company of the driver, she walked through the hotel's front doors, pausing to take in the tastefully decorated lobby. It was small, but clean and refined, with marble floors, elegant white leather couches, and large arrangements of fresh lilies. The check-in desk sat against one wall, while a gleaming wood bar offering refreshments lined the other. She had started toward the reception desk when the front doors softly swished open behind her. A small delegation entered, a distinguished-looking man in a polo shirt and khakis, flanked by 2 beefy bodyguards wearing dark wool suits, sunglasses, and earbuds. The man appeared to be somewhere in his mid-50s, with a mild, attentive expression and an air of calm. His hair was peppered with gray, but he looked fit for his age. He carried a sturdy black leather satchel that made Amanda think of the bags doctors carried decades ago, the kind of bag her father used to carry. He exuded genuine warmth. He walked right up to her and held out his hand. "Hello, Amanda. I'm Basil Blake. We spoke on the phone. I am your advisor. It's a pleasure to meet you." "Hello." She shook his hand. "It's nice to meet you in person. I'm glad to have an advisor. I have so many questions." "I know, my dear. We're almost there." Blake nodded to the hotel reception desk, and the 2 staff members vacated the post, heading to the offices in the back. "The hotel is reserved just for us tonight," he explained, then glanced at his watch. "You're the last ones in. Let's get going." He smiled. "I'm sorry. I know you're exhausted, but the induction ceremony can't wait. It won't last long. You'll hear everything you need to know, and then you can get a good rest." He seemed exceptionally kind and paternal, but Amanda would reserve her final judgment about this whole ordeal until after she met the committee. "Thank you, Mr. Blake," she said. I am interested to hear what the committee has to say." With a wide motion of his arm, he invited her to exit the doors ahead of him. They headed out to the street, where a stretch limousine now awaited. Their original driver was lifting their luggage out of the car, and Matt and Lydia were already inside the limousine, facing each other, their arms folded across their chests. Amanda and Basil Blake climbed in, followed by the bodyguards. The limo drove through Prague's narrow, crooked streets, sometimes taking the turns so fast that they had to brace themselves. As they rode, Basil informed them that they were heading toward Charles University, next to the famous Charles Bridge, a wide, stony construction spanning the Vltava River. Amanda had read something about this ancient bridge while on their flight in, and she strained to remember what it was famous for. Probably the lifelike statues of Catholic knights lining both sides of the bridge, from one end to the other. The limousine pulled over and dropped them off near the bridge. The two bodyguards stayed in the car. As they stood on the curb, Basil whispered something to Matt, who nodded in response and rubbed his hands together enthusiastically. "Shall we?" With a theatrical sweep of his arm, Matt directed them to a building on the other side of the road. An old university hall built of white stone. A few people clustered outside the doors, having a smoke and a chat. "Be a little more serious if you can, Matt," Basil reproached him with a smile before crossing the road. Lydia rolled her eyes and hissed something under her breath. "Come on, Mandy," she said before scampering to catch up with their advisor. But Amanda allowed herself to linger behind for a little longer, taking in the surroundings. The evening air was quiet, the city was draped in shadows, and the bridge statues stood a solemn vigil over the dark river below, like medieval guards, like sentinels. Amanda hugged herself to repress a nervous shudder. God, seriously, was this really happening? Matt's words came back to her. An ancient, secret society of people with special powers. What was she getting herself into? Not yet able to wrap her mind around the enormity of the change in her life, she hurried across the road.